Howdy y'all, Caleb here, and today we're talking about Saurus Guard, the bodyguards of our Slann. Can they fight now in melee? Maybe so. So we have some new rules coming out for this GHB, and it has opened the door for some of our Saurus units. And that rule is being able to fight in ranks behind each other. So as long as you're base to base with the guy in front of you and he's attacking the enemy, you get to attack too. We'll look at the rule here in a second, but that's basically it. And what that means is that the Saurus Guard can now get more attacks in. One of their biggest weaknesses was always these giant pole arms they have only have a short, tiny 1-inch range. And so that kind of limited them in melee before. They do have some good attacks here. They are kind of slow, 5-inch move. They do have 2 wounds, which is nice for Saurus warriors, which probably should have 2 wounds. At least the Saurus Guard do have 2 wounds. They have a 4-up save and 8 bravery. But their attacks, they get the innate attacks, extra attacks that the Saurus warriors get when they have a horde. Saurus Guard get that naturally. So they have 2 attacks on their Warscroll. They also don't have to worry about getting that +1 to hit because they hit on 3s, wound on 3s, have -1 Rin, 1 damage. So looking at their War Scroll is basically the Warriors' War Scroll once you've buffed it up a little bit. Once the Warriors are in a horde, and once they get a +1 to hit, either from All Out Attack or Kotal's Claw, now they're basically at the War Scroll of a Saurus Guard. So on the surface, Saurus Guard are better in melee. Part of the problem is that you can only take a max of 15 in one unit. And with the new rules of being able to fight with that second rank, we can get more attacks in with the warriors. So we'll see. Look at the damage numbers here in a minute. But overall, just mass attacks, buffing them to sky high, warriors can do more damage than guard. We'll see that as it kind of comes out here. That they will end up getting more damage. Now, if you're going in and you're not planning on buffing these things at all, you just need a couple bodies. Guard they'll do more damage unbuffed as an MSU unit than warriors will. So that's where one place they do outshine them. They also serve a dual role. So as we look at their abilities here, we get the standard like extra 1 attack for a hero, -1 bravery for opponent when you're near the banner. Reroll charges, those are all the same as warriors. But this selfless ability here, that lets you take wounds from Slanns or Lord Kroak when they're getting damaged. So if you're going to allocate some wounds to a Slann or Kroak, before you do that, you roll a dice on a 2-up. You'll give it to this unit. So that's pretty nice. It does present some weird interactions now that Slann doesn't have scaly skin. And so you're basically going to be taking the full damage on this Saurus Guard, I think, because the attacks are going to the Slann, and you're not reducing the damage of those attacks by 1. So the Slann takes the full damage, but before you allocate them, which is still the full damage, you're giving them to these guys. And I don't think that you're going to get to reduce the damage coming into these. So they'll end up taking the full damage, which is kind of a weird interaction there. But quite useful now that our Slanns and Kroak are a little bit squishier than they used to be. So in Coalesce, they do kind of form that double role of our bodyguards, but then also they'll have 4 attacks each with the extra jaw attack from Coalesce. And so not a bad War Scroll there. Unbuffed, they don't really do a whole lot of damage. You kind of see it with the about the same as those warriors too. About 4 damage to a 4-up save, but we do have this new ability where we can fight with that second row. So see, we have them here. Unit cohesion, you do have to keep them kind of lined up basically about like this. But it's fine now because now we can attack with that back row if they're going into something that this row can attack. And so you're pretty easily able to get a full unit of 15 of these into an enemy. I don't think you should have much problem with that unless you're attacking something very small. You should be able to get 15 of these all in combat. So we're going to run all these numbers, assuming all 15 get into combat for the sake of these numbers. So unbuffed, 11 damage versus a 4-up save. Getting a little better. Obviously not good enough for their points cost, which is 345 for a full unit of 15. So We do have some buffs. So we went through this a little bit more extensively with the guard, with the warriors. But we do have some ways to layer synergies on top of each other. So if you have them in Kotal's Claw, you can get a free 1-up to the hits if they charge. And so that's nice because that opens up our command point allocation in the combat phase for something else, which you would probably use on a Saurus Sunblood or exploding those hits on 6s. So you can layer these things on top of each other. If you're not in Kotal's Claw, you'll probably be spending it on all-out attack if this unit has a target priority in that combat phase. But there are some good free abilities that you can buff onto them, and that's the Skink Star Priest. This is another time where this Skink Star Priest is a requirement, basically, to take with any kind of source unit. It's where a lot of that damage is coming from that's gonna take it over the top. So we get Hand of Glory, which is a fantastic spell that the Skink Wizard has access to, and that lets us reroll hit rolls of 1. And that's great when you're adding a +1 to hit, either from all-out attack or Kotal's Claw. And so now we're hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s for the polearm, and the jaws would be at 4s, rerolling 1. Jaws aren't going to do as much damage, but it's given us a better quality of attack on those polearms. So we also have a Serpent Staff, which will give mortal wounds on wound rolls of 6. And so this is good for when you have lots of attacks, which Source Guard will have quite a few attacks. You're talking 4 attacks each out of 15 guys. That's 60 attacks that you're going to be throwing at the enemy. So that's a good way to get those wounds allocated in mortal wounds. So if we buff them up a little bit, this is just looking at our very, very standard buffs. We've got +1 jaw attacks and coalesced, and we've got an all-out attack or Kotal's Claw +1 to hit. And we're getting a little bit better at 15 damage. Obviously not quite good enough for that price. We need more synergies. And that's where the Skink Star Priest comes in. That Skink Star Priest does a lot for our Saurus units. And you can see that here in the damage numbers where the 15 Source Guard are now doing about 25 damage to a 4-up save. A lot more respectable. Even doing 16 to a 2-up save, a lot of that's coming from those mortal wounds. You're just throwing a lot of dice at them and fishing for those mortal wounds. But the -1 rend isn't bad on that. And so that does help having that rend. But a decent damage output for the Source Guard. But we can definitely go higher. Once we start getting into this territory, you're talking, like some expert level play, lining up all these buffs. The one previously, this is a pretty easy buff to get. You're spending 1 command point and you're spending 1 hero phase thing and a spell. It's not hard to get those buffs on. Once you start going further down this chart that we're looking at, these get a lot more difficult. This one, we're getting our +1 to hit in Kotal's Claw on the charge so that we're not having to spend a command point. And that frees us up to spend a command point from the Sunblood for +1 to wound. And when we're doing that, if we've got this combo right, paired up with that Star Priest, our polearms are hitting on 2s, re-rolling, and we're wounding on 2s. And we're doing mortal wounds on 6s to wound. So great quality of attacks for those polearms. You're looking at 30 attacks, 2-up, re-rolling 1s, and then a 2-up to wound. So that's a great profile to be throwing at somebody. A lot of that is going to go through. So that one is a good one. It gets us up to 30 damage versus a 4-up save. You're starting to clear some pretty big targets there. And I think we talked about this a little bit in the last video, but I think damage is going up higher in this edition. So 30 damage versus a 4-up save, I think that's going to be showing up quite a bit. So we want to see more than that. But does that sound like I'm getting greedy? Maybe, but I think we're going to see a lot of damage. So this one is, we're still we're on this expert level. Everything's going right. Now we've got an Engine of the Gods with Curse. Our Curse Prayer is hit on that target, and we're adding another 12 damage to this stack. A lot of that's coming from those mortal wounds because you're throwing 60 dice at the opponent. 6s to hit our mortal wounds. You're hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s, wounded on 2s. 6s are mortal wounds, so you're just doing a crazy amount of damage. I love the Curse. I love the Star Priest staff. Both of those just combo together so well. But we can't go higher, of course. Let's throw in there the Purple Sun of the Starseer to give the enemy a -1 to their save. You could do both of it if you wanted to. Obviously, only one of them will stack, but that'll negate any of their all-out defenses and stuff. And you're getting even more damage there. Probably not quite as worth it as some of the other buffs, but hey, it's possible. All these synergies can work if you're hitting everything just right. And of course, if you're a god tier level synergy master, you might put these guys in the bounty hunters battalion, and now your source guard are out there hunting those Galician veterans and doing about 77 damage versus a 4-up save. Just ridiculous. This is why I think, there's going to be a lot of damage in this edition. You're going to see a lot of things in bounty hunters, and that damage is just it's gonna go off the charts. These synergies are difficult to stack together. I mean, this is a lot of stuff onto one unit, but it's all possible. You can get there. It's a little crazy to do that. I think probably what's more typical is your standard +1 to hit from something and your Star Priest. That's kind of usually what I'm aiming for. And even with that, these guys are doing quite a bit of damage. 25 damage isn't something to scoff at. It's still clearing quite a bit of stuff. You can play them in Starborn, I think, if you wanted to. So if you're wanting to take a Slann or Lord Kroak in your Starborn list, which obviously every list is going to have a Slann in it, you can take the Source Guard and max out the unit if you have the reinforcement points available, and they'll still do damage. They don't have their extra jaw attacks here, and they don't have our +1 from Kotal's Claw. If we're talking Starborn, we got to take that out. But you still can get +1 to hit, though. So you still can't get this number here. And what it is they're providing more than just a bodyguard. They always used to just be a bodyguard, and now they can provide more than that bodyguard role. They can actually do some damage. So the dream is always to throw Lord Kroak on the table, walk these guys up the board, and just have fun. And I think they can perform that role pretty well. So let's look at a couple lists here, threw these together, and I think they might be fun. Obviously, we're very new into this new edition. In fact, it hasn't officially started yet. So these lists might change. These are ones I'm just thinking about. But this is a Thunder Lizard list that has a max unit of guard in it. And so Thunder Lizard list, I'm taking my Stegodon with Skink Chief as my general, giving him Prime War Beast and Cloak of Feathers. Excuse me, Cloak of Feathers. I'm getting that extra artifact because I'm doing a Command Entourage to give me an extra artifact. I think our drops are going to be increasing in this edition, so I'm not too worried about going low drop. I want that extra artifact. Cloak of Feathers is fantastic on the Stegodon. So he's got the Stegodon to give him fly, -1 to hit, and an extra 4 inches of movement. Just fantastic. Skystreak Bow, obviously, and Beastmaster to give him extra attacks. Engine of the God has the Fusel of Conflagration to do some mortal wounds on it, and the Prayer of Curse. I love it. I love the Engine of Gods with Curse on it. Lord Kroak. Here's where I've been wanting to play Lord Kroak for a while. He doesn't get the table near as much as he should. But now that guard are decent, I like this. So I'm going to take Kroak with Stellar Tempest so he can do some horde busting. The Source Ashwolf Banner Bearer, which obviously you got to put in any list with Kroak because he gives extra range to all those beautiful spells that you can combo with Kroak. And I'm taking a Skink Star Priest with Hand of Glory. In my battle line, I am taking a double reinforced unit of Guard. And this is the unit of march them up the board to the middle of the board with Kroak. So you're gonna pair Kroak, the Banner Bearer, and the Star Priest with those Guard. And the Guard are gonna do work, Kroak is gonna do work, and they're gonna be able to capture objectives. I'm also taking 2 units of Knights. I'm going to put one in the Expert Conquerors because I want the other one in Bounty Hunters. Knights can be decent when you put them in Bounty Hunters. They have a lot of attacks, and now you're putting them at 2 attacks each, or 2 damage each, is pretty nice into a Galician veteran units. I'm also throwing in there a unit of Kroxigor because it fit. I don't really like Kroxigor in units of 3, so I think this list could be worked a little bit because they're susceptible to that realm command ability where they could have to fight last versus a veteran unit, and that's where you want to throw them in. You're wanting to throw these Kroxigor into a veteran unit that's a horde, so they can swing those moon hammers away and do some work. But they can operate on their own, so I don't feel too bad about having them on their own. You know, they can have a little bit of board presence there. So a pretty fun list. 112 wounds. You got your Engine of the Gods and Stegodon to kind of go do their thing. Kroak and the Guard to do theirs. Knights to hold the board, and Kroxigor as kind of your utility piece. Not really a lot of shooting here. I mean, our really only shooting is the Stegodon, but we do have some board presence and some threat with Kroak not being stuck in the temple, as he's going to be moving up with those guard. He's not afraid to die now because he's got 30 wounds to pass off damage to, and those wounds can bite back. That's my Thunder Lizard list. This next list, I just wanted to do as many guard as possible. I don't think this list is good, so don't run this unless you just got a ton of guard, because I do think warriors in the end are better for what they do. But I wanted to do max source guard just to see what the list would look like, and maybe this is what you could run. We do have an Engine of the Gods here, a Slann Starmaster, Source Sunblood, 2 Skink Star Priests, and a Skink Starseer. So here you can start lining up those synergies, which were like the God tier level. We're going for Curse. We're going for -1 of their save from the Starseer. We're going for +1. Oh, this isn't Kotal's Claw, by the way. So we get out of some of the command traits and command abilities. You can see the list over there on the right side by using our Engine of the Gods as a general. And I'm taking them High Priest so that we can maybe get that extra prayer on Curse to make sure it goes off. So kind of an interesting play here. Anyway, so we are able to get all those like God tier buffs off on these Source Guard to where they'll do, you know, we're looking at that 77 damage versus a 4-up save. That's what we're salivating for. That's what we're trying for with all these buffs. And maybe we can get it to go off. We've got 2 big units to work with. Our Slann is going to be parked in between those probably. He'll probably go up the board with these guys because we're not worried about losing that Slann. Because, I mean, we have, what is this? 120 plus another 20. We have 140 wounds here that could be taken from the... is that right? Because my wound total down there is not right. We got 30. No, we got 60 wounds and then another 20 there. Okay, yeah. Obviously, I was way off. That's 80 wounds that the Slann can pass off before it gets killed. So that's pretty nice. Again, I don't think this is a runnable list, but if you're looking for a guard spam and Kotal's Claw, maybe it works. It's kind of like no shooting. So might have to be crazy to run this. Anyway, what do you guys think about guard? Ultimately, I think they have a role in our lists. I think they can do well. I think I like running like 1 unit of 15 to protect my Slann, to make my Slann more mobile, or if you're running Kroak. But I don't think I'm going to lean too heavy into them, but just because warriors ultimately are going to out damage them, and they'll stick around the same amount, but warriors can count for more on objectives. So I do like warriors more than guard based on just pure damage and board presence, but guard have their place. So you could probably take a max unit of both and make it work pretty well. So, all right, guys, that's Source Guard. Let me know what you think below in the comments, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.